My friends, this is the video to watch about the Unified Ledger, Shared Ledger, Finternet, XRP, Qnt. What is that Unified Ledger? I'm telling you, my goodness, this is the one to watch. Please watch this video till the very end. You owe it to yourself. I know it sounds crazy, doesn't sound very humble, but I'm telling you, this is the most important video on the Finternet, Unified Ledger, Shared Ledger that you'll probably ever watch. This is the one, guys. I am not kidding you. These lies and this deception coming from the BIS and the central bankers about this shared ledger, unified ledger, it's done. It's over. The lies and the deception stops now. It's over. The Quant community and the XRP community is not going to be deceived anymore. It's over. Hey guys, is it okay if I show you again irrefutable proof that the shared ledger, regulated liability network, regulated settlement network, all those different names they use for it, is it okay if I show you that this is the XRP ledger? Settle this once again, another video to show you undeniable proof. But first, I gotta give a huge shout out to Digital Perspectives, Brad Kimes. My goodness, he featured me on a show the other day. He literally did a full breakdown of one of my videos. I couldn't believe it. I didn't sleep that night. And he gave me a huge shout out. He encouraged people to follow me and subscribe to my channel. He asked people to show me some love. And I just want to say thank you, Brad. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I've been watching you for years. You've been the main guy that I've been watching. I've always been hoping that one day maybe I'll start doing YouTube videos, and maybe after a few years of doing YouTube videos, I might be able to convince you to invite me on your show, or just at least talk to you, because I've been wanting to share my ideas with you for so long. For you to literally do a full breakdown of my video and then invite me on your show, it just blew me away. Like I said, I wasn't even touching the ground. Thank you so much. I look forward to being on your show. I've sent you a message on Twitter. I'm sure you're like crazy busy. Like I said, man, I look forward to being on your show. Thanks so much. And a huge shout out to SAP for sending my video to Brad. Thanks so much, SAP. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all the love, all the comments I'm getting. Thank you so much for all the support in every way. I really appreciate it. So this is part 3 of the video that Brad Kimes did a breakdown of and everybody really liked. I'm going to show more proof that the shared ledger, regulated liability network, regulated settlement network, it's all the same thing. It's all the XRP ledger. If you haven't watched part 2, I would really encourage you to watch part 2 after you watch this video. So I'm just going to go over quickly what I talked about, just really briefly. In a previous video, I showed how the regulated liability network, how Gilbert Verdian said that they provided the custom APIs and the programmability and interoperability for the project. And they also partnered with R3, who are bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. So they partnered with R3 for the shared ledger. And then I showed how Tony McLaughlin from Citibank said that the shared ledger and the regulated liability network are technically the same thing. Now, if we look at a document here where they're talking about the regulated liability network, I'm not sure where I took this, I can't remember. But look right here, the RLN could bring several benefits. For example, the RLN may offer potential for a new global settlement infrastructure. By including central bank money from multiple jurisdictions, it has the potential to become a global real-time gross settlement capability. So the RLN, Regulated Liability Network, has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement. All right, very interesting. You're gonna like this. All right, so in the last episode, I showed you this document that came from the Hyperledger Foundation. It laid out how they were gonna do the Internet of Value. I showed you the global real-time gross settlement right here. Global RTGS. Global RTGS is the XRP ledger, and it's the Interledger Protocol that connects all of the central banks and the commercial banks to the XRP ledger, and then the Interledger Protocol again connects the XRP ledger to the correspondent banks and liquidity providers. All right, the global RTGS is the XRP ledger. So let's see what it says here. The Interledger Protocol will enable financial institutions and central banks to make their existing infrastructure and processes interoperable with other currencies, asset classes, and the XRP ledger. What is the XRP ledger? They're going to tell you here, comma, the global liquidity marketplace and the global decentralized RTGS. That is the Global Decentralized Real-Time Gross Settlement System. What does the document say right here? The Regulated Liability Network has the potential to create a global real-time gross settlement capability. Global real-time gross settlement capability. Isn't that interesting? So I had explained that Gilbert Verdine said they're partnered with R3 who's bringing in the shared ledger. Tony from City McLaughlin said the Regulated Liability Network and the shared ledger are the same thing. Now we've got a document here from the Hyperledger Foundation, the biggest consortium of banks, central banks, universities, tech companies, and so on, all working on open blockchain projects to advance blockchain. This document was produced 7 years ago, roughly. It surfaced, and they were showing how they were creating the Internet of Value. And now this document is showing the RLN is the global RTGS, which is the XRP Ledger. Now let me show you something else that I haven't shown in the other videos. So now here's a document from Deutsche Bank, July 23. You're going to like this one. Digital money options for the financial industry. Right here it mentions private sector settlement solutions. What's Ripple? It's a private company, right? Doing settlements. Right here it talks about the Regulated Liability Network. In essence, the Regulated Liability Network, RLN, is an interoperable network of commercial bank and central bank liabilities. The aim of the infrastructure is to improve national and international payments by using distributed ledger technology. You notice how they're not saying they're using an operating system. They're using a distributed ledger technology. The concept originates in the article entitled The Regulated Internet of Value. The first time the Regulated Liability Network was ever mentioned, it was actually called the Regulated Internet of Value. Isn't that interesting? But they changed the name because everyone knows that Ripple, XRP, is the Internet of Value. Ripple, the company, has been preaching for years now. Over 7 years, we are building the Internet of Value. We are building the Internet of Value. I can show you a billion clips probably right now of people at Ripple saying we are building the Internet of Value. That's why they built the Interledger Protocol, because the XRP Ledger is built on top of the Interledger Protocol. That's the Internet of Value. It's the same thing that we see from the document coming from the Hyperledger Foundation. There is nobody else building the Internet of Value. RippleNet, the Interledger Protocol, XRP Ledger, it's the Internet of Value. So the first time it was ever mentioned, it's called the Regulated Internet of Value. Published by Citigroup in 2021. Representatives from various industries came together in 2022 to publish a white paper fleshing out the idea of the RLN. And at the time, in 2021, they called it the Regulated Internet of Value. But they changed the name very quick. Oh, wait, we can't call it the Regulated Internet of Value. What are you doing, guys? Everybody's going to know it's XRP. You can't call it that. So they changed the name to the Regulated Liability Network. And then they said, oh, for the UK, we're going to call it the Regulated Liability Network. And then for the US banks, central banks, we'll call it the Regulated Settlement Network. And then sometimes we'll call it a shared ledger technology. And sometimes we'll call it maybe unified ledger technology. We're going to mix it up. We don't want people to find out what's going on. We can't afford people to find out that the XRP Ledger is the Regulated Liability Network. Right here, the idea behind a RLN, Regulated Liability Network, an interplay of various tokenized forms of money on a common platform has already been taken up on several occasions. The Bank for International Settlements describes the idea of a common programmable platform on which tokenized forms of money circulate as holding great promise. Instead of Regulated Liability Network, the BIS uses the term Unified Ledger. What did I tell you guys? Instead of Regulated Liability Network, the BIS uses the term Unified Ledger. I've been telling you that it's all the same thing and that they're using different names for it to confuse us. I've been telling you that the Quant overledger is not the Unified Ledger. I have a little beef with Gilbert. It's not his fault. He has to say that. The BIS is his biggest client. He has no choice to say Unified Ledger, make it sound like they're the Unified Ledger. But in reality, they are providing the programmability, interoperability, and custom APIs for the Unified Ledger. But right here in this document, it's telling you that the Bank for International Settlements describes the Regulated Liability Network as the Unified Ledger. The BIS uses the term unified ledger when talking about the Regulated Liability Network. So now I have confirmation in this document. Gilbert Verdian said they partnered with R3, who is bringing in the shared ledger. Tony McLaughlin from Citibank said the shared ledger and the Regulated Liability Network was the same thing. Now I'm showing you that Regulated Liability Network used to be called the Regulated Internet of Value. And now I'm showing you that the BIS often uses the word unified ledger instead of saying Regulated Liability Network. They say unified ledger. Why? So anyways, let me show you something here. Now here in this document, it's cut off a bit. You see right at the bottom here, unified ledger. And that it's the Interledger, they call it the Unified Interledger Protocol. Of course, there's only one Interledger Protocol. It's the one that Ripple built. There's only one Interledger Protocol. They can call it whatever they want. There's only one. So you see here that the Interledger Protocol is connecting the Unified Ledger. Unified Ledger 1, Unified Ledger 2, it's connecting the Unified Ledgers. So my question is, if the Unified Ledger is Quant, that means that Quant needs the Interledger Protocol to connect to another Unified Ledger. So that would mean that Quant doesn't have interoperability by itself. If someone says that Quant is the Unified Ledger based on these BIS documents, this is document coming from the BIS, we always see that the Interledger Protocol is connecting the Unified Ledgers. By saying that Quant is the Unified Ledger, you are implying that Quant needs Interledger Protocol, the ILP, to connect to other systems or to connect to another Unified Ledger. Technically, because you see the Interledger Protocol here connecting the Unified Ledger 1 to Unified Ledger 2. So you're implying that Quant needs the Interledger Protocol to connect to something else, that Quant doesn't have the interoperability on its own. And you're also technically implying that Quant Overledger is like two systems, as if there's two Quant Overledgers or something. Because you see Unified Ledger 1 connecting to another Unified Ledger. So how many Quant Overledgers are there? There's only one Quant Overledger. So how can the Unified Ledger be Quant Overledger when you're seeing it being connected to another Unified Ledger? And why would Quant need the Interledger Protocol to connect to Quant? So Quant is using Interledger Protocol to connect to Quant. That doesn't make sense. I thought Quant was the true interoperability solution. You could connect it to anything. Why the heck would it need to use Interledger Protocol to connect to another Quant? Because you're seeing the Interledger Protocol connect different Unified Ledgers. So the idea that Quant is the Unified Ledger, that's again proof that it does not make sense that the Unified Ledger would be Quant. It's just deception. Oh my goodness. Alright, so listen to what the guy at the BIS here says. He's gonna, at the bottom here, it says BIS describes SWIFT versus the Unified Ledger. That one of the head of technology for the BIS here, he's gonna tell you that the Unified Ledger replaces SWIFT. Isn't that interesting? Who has been saying for 7 years now that they are replacing SWIFT? I can show you a million different videos of Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple saying we are replacing SWIFT, we are taking over SWIFT, we are replacing SWIFT. That's a lie as well. They're replacing it, yes, but they knew that SWIFT was just going to connect into them as well. So SWIFT was always going to use Ripple. But who's replacing SWIFT? It's Ripple, right? And here, the head guy at the BIS is going to tell you that the Unified Ledger is going to replace SWIFT.
Or whatever the asset might be. These kind of transactions currently are done separately. So there's a messaging network, and you're familiar with SWIFT, probably. But the settlement is done separately through the bookkeeping operations along the chain of financial intermediaries. But if we have the Unified Ledger that have both central bank money and commercial bank deposits all on the same platform, we can have all of those transactions take place instantaneously at the same time.
So he says, if we have Unified Ledger, not a bunch of them, but one. What did Gilbert Verdian say? He said, we also partnered with R3 who are bringing in the shared ledger, where all of the tokenized assets will reside. That's what I've been telling the community. The shared ledger, the Unified Ledger, Regulated Liability Network, Regulated Settlement Network, Regulated Internet of Value, Finternet, which is the financial internet, used to be called the Internet of Value, now they're calling it the Finternet. It's all the XRP Ledger. Now, Quant plays a ridiculous role for the Finternet, for the Unified Ledger, because Quant is what allows the whole world to connect into the shared ledger, Unified Ledger, call it what you want. Quant is what allows all of the different legacy systems that exist today, all of the different industries we have today, every single industry you can think of is trapped in legacy systems. Legacy means they cannot speak to blockchain. Quant Overledger is an operating system that overlays all of the blockchains and allows all of the legacy systems, meaning all of the different industry sectors, to start using blockchain. It allows them to connect into the unified ledger, which is the Internet of Value, and also the other blockchains as well, so that the whole world can build multi-chain applications. These are blockchain applications that use the best features of each blockchain. You can use 5 blockchains, 10, 20, use 100 if you want. Depends what kind of solution you want to build, right? But Quant is the solution that allows the whole world to build multi-chain applications. Pick the best features of each chain and build what are called an MDAP. MDAP. Only Quant can do that. That's why in my other videos I have explained that Quant is the door to get us from the 3rd Industrial Revolution to the 4th Industrial Revolution. Quant is the Microsoft Windows with a router on top, technically, for the 4th Industrial Revolution. We are going from the information age to the tokenization age. Call it a blockchain and AI age. Quant is that door. It was Microsoft Windows who allowed us to go. It was the TCP, the protocol, the Internet Protocol with Microsoft. Microsoft was what allowed us to go from the manufacturing age to the information age, which was the Internet. Now, Quant is that door that allows us to go from the 3rd Industrial Revolution to the 4th Industrial Revolution. Some people call it industrial ages, some people call it industrial revolutions, but Quant is that door. There is no other door. Like I said in my other videos, Quant is that door. There is nothing bigger than Quant, but the actual unified ledger itself is not Quant. Now, they might want to imply that, oh, because Quant's role now, because Quant is here now, we can call it the Finternet, or we can call it the unified ledger. Not really. You still have the Finternet, you still have the Internet of Value, which is Ripple. Quant's the Internet of Trust. Gilbert Verdin always said we are the Internet of Trust because it's connecting everything that exists to blockchain, and blockchain represents trust. It's interconnecting everything to blockchain, and blockchain represents trust. That's why it's called the Internet, interconnecting, Internet of Trust. Gilbert Verdin said we are the Internet of Trust. XRP Ledger is the Internet of Value. Sorry, I should correct. The XRP Ledger with the Interledger Protocol is the Internet of Value. Stellar plays a role as well because Stellar is also built on the Interledger Protocol. Stellar is technically a clone of the XRP Ledger. It's the same code. So Stellar is going to play a role, but maybe they'll get 10% of the volume. I'm not sure exactly how much volume they'll get, but Stellar is more for peer-to-peer, from my understanding. Now, I do want to add something real quick. In my last video, I talked about how the XRP Ledger had multiple side chains, and technically, I didn't use the right terminology. They do have side chains, but I should have said these are all separate private ledgers. The XRP Ledger has numerous private ledgers that the central banks are building their CBDCs on, but I was saying side chains, and that is technically incorrect. I was using the wrong terminology there. Technically, my understanding is central banks could build on side chains, but I think all the CBDCs are built on private ledgers. I don't think there's any CBDCs being built on side chains. I don't think. So what I meant to say yesterday is private ledgers. These are private ledgers, not necessarily side chains, but private ledgers. So now I've been telling you how the shared ledger is technically the XRP ledger, and the XRP ledger has numerous private ledgers, that the CBDCs are being built on private ledgers and tokenized asset. Commercial banks are also creating their own tokens, and a lot of tokenization and CBDC projects are happening on private ledgers. I've told you again that this is the shared ledger. Numerous different shared ledgers, also known as private ledgers, all around the XRP public ledger. The XRP ledger, the public ledger, has numerous clones. These are private ledgers that central banks are building on, and they're carbon copy clones of the XRP ledger. In this document right here, what do you see? You see the shared / private ledger. It's calling the private ledgers shared ledgers. I'm getting somewhere. Trust me, I'm getting somewhere. The shared / private ledger. This is a BIS document. It's the same document where we're seeing the Interledger Protocol connecting the unified ledger. And what are we seeing here? Tokenized equities, tokenized deposits, tokenized central bank money. and tokenized real estate. This here is technically a breakdown of this, right? So you see central bank and commercial banks, shared ledger, private ledger. Asset management company, shared ledger, private ledger. Private or public companies, I've told you that private and public companies are tokenizing. For example, Starbucks should be creating a token. Numerous different company, food chains, everything, they're tokenizing everything, right? So private or public companies tokenizing everything, creating tokens on a shared private ledger. You see tokenized equities, tokenized deposits, tokenized everything. Here you have real estate registrars, tokenized real estate. In my previous video, I showed you how Gilbert Verdian, when he was talking about the Regulated Liability Network, said, we provided the programmability, interoperability, and common APIs, and we also partnered with R3, who are bringing in the shared ledger. So common API right here, this layer here, Quant, the second green layer right here, the RLN orchestration and programmability layer. We are providing the programmability and the custom APIs. These two layers are Quant. You see right here, Quant, and that Quant is allowing everything to connect into the shared ledger API gateway. It's connecting into the shared ledger. At the bottom here, you're seeing R3. This is the shared ledger right here, R3. And we're seeing these partitions again. On this document, they're calling them partitions. You have a wholesale CBDC partition, you have a retail CBDC partition, and you have a TD partition, which is a member bank. These are private ledgers on the XRP ledger. They're calling them partitions. You have the public ledger, XRP, and on the side, you have private chains, technically a partition. Same thing here, your shared ledger. You have different partitions, central bank, commercial bank, and asset money companies. So these are partitions. This is your shared private ledger. This document right here is showing the global RTGS, call it the main unified ledger or the main shared ledger right here. You see these partitions, you see the RTGS system. These are central banks, the Bank of Japan, Target 2, Fedwire, which is the Federal Reserve. These are your central bank partitions, your central bank shared ledgers, your central bank private ledgers right here. These are the private ledgers. But what I forgot to show you in the previous video, or I forgot to explain, that these are local payments. So this would be technically your commercial banks or your local payment systems, right? Like ACH in the US. You've got Nacho. You've got SEPA here. So these are the local payments. Or maybe it could be like the commercial bank partitions as well. But it's the same breakdown. You have ledgers here and ledgers here. It's the same breakdown. And the main unified ledger right here. And like I showed you earlier, it says the RTGS, the XRP ledger, is the global decentralized RTGS. So now this is a document coming from the IMF. You're going to like this one. So they were supposed to remove this from this document, but the lady responsible for the editing must have missed it. And so if the IMF sees my video, she's going to lose her job because right here, she forgot to remove this. This is coming from the IMF. This is the IMF right here. IMF Department Papers, The Rise of Digital Money. I'll show you the full document in a minute. Remember how Gilbert Verdian said we also partnered with R3, who are bringing in the shared ledger where all of the tokenized assets will reside. What is the IMF, the most powerful bank in the world? What are they calling the R3 here? Look at this right here. Based on the R3 XRP blockchain. Isn't that interesting? There is a plan to issue sovereign stablecoins. Sovereign means it's national. It's tied to national government. Sovereign stablecoins by late 2022 based on the R3 XRP blockchain. Isn't that interesting? R3 uses the R3 Corda settler to settle transactions. R3 is built on the XRP ledger indirectly. R3 was given 5 billion XRP many years ago, like I explained, by Ripple to bring utility use cases to the XRP ledger. There was a lawsuit. It seems that R3 wasn't pulling their weight or whatever. It was settled for 1 billion XRP. They still have 1 billion XRP. Here we have the IMF calling the R3 Corda technically the R3 XRP blockchain, as if it's the same blockchain. Isn't that interesting? The shared ledger that R3 is bringing over is the XRP Ledger. There is no other way. I'll probably do another video showing you all the different connections R3, showing the relationship, showing all the proof of R3 and XRP. I might do version 4 here. This video is going to be too long if I show that. I'll show you a few clips here. I won't go through them, but I'll just show you. There's a video here from R3 showing that R3 Corda uses XRP to settle. Shout out to Smoke Dog. You gotta follow Smoke Dog. His name is spelled with a Q, so every O is replaced with a Q. And then we've got here another video.
An update to
another video here showing R3 Corda settler utilizes XRP for settlement. Anyways, I'll probably do another video and show you probably 30 minutes straight of the XRP R3, the Ripple R3 connection relation, all the proof. Now, on the overledger.dev website, I think this is the official channel for Quant network. So right here it says, what is the layer 2.5 network? Layer 2.5 is a next generation interoperability layer that bridges the gap between layer 2 scalability and layer 1 decentralized without compromise. It introduces a unified ledger network architecture designed for institutional enterprise. But now I have a beef with this. Why are they saying that it's introducing a unified ledger network architecture? I don't know if this is approved by Gilbert Verdian or not. I see posts of Gilbert giving the indication that Quant is the unified ledger or they're playing a big role and so on. Now, I'm going to prove that this is incorrect. You have to understand that the Bank for International Settlements, we have seen that they do not want people to know exactly what the unified ledger is. The Bank for International Settlements is the central banks of all central banks. They are Gilbert Verdian's client. They are the biggest client that Gilbert Verdian and Quant will ever have. They're the central banks for all central banks, and they have the innovation hub. With the BIS Innovation Hub, they are building CBDCs across the world. Now, the tech companies, private tech companies, banks, and corporations are building on top of the CBDCs, which is what will bring multiple use cases to CBDCs. There needs to be a need for CBDCs. If there's no use cases, there's no need for it. The Bank for International Settlements via the BIS Innovation Hub is the behemoth of behemoth. I've explained in my other videos how huge this is for Quant. This is insane. They're re-architecturing the financial system here. This is not a joke. There's a saying, every war is a banker's war. We don't have war unless they want it, unfortunately, because they finance both sides. It's a very big deal. And like I said, we know that the BIS doesn't want us to know exactly what the unified ledger is. That's why they gave it 100 names. I truly believe that Gilbert is under instructions to mention a unified ledger and imply that Quant is the unified ledger. But I'm going to prove to you right now in another way that this is absolutely impossible. What I mean is that Gilbert has to follow orders with the BIS. They're the biggest client. They're like the behemoth of behemoths. Gilbert has to follow orders. If the BIS wants him to produce certain things that imply that they are the unified ledger or might be the unified ledger to keep people confused, he has to do it. If you don't think so, go and see who the BIS is. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you've watched this video till the end, please comment below anything. Say XRP Shared Ledger, XRP Unified Ledger, XRP Regulated Liability Network, XRP RLN, XRP Finternet. Say anything you want. Alright guys, so thank you so much for all your support. Like I said, I'm wishing you a great day, great evening, great afternoon, wherever you are. And God bless you all.